Critters, the original 80s movie directed by Stephen Herrick and starring some horror and sci-fi royalty actors such as E.T.'s mum Dee Wallace, was made for a mere $3 million and raked in $30 million in the US on release, and this doesn't include all the VHS rentals. God, I feel old. And has also spawned 3 sequels and a series. I was 11 when this movie came out in its original VHS format, and I fell in love with both the farmhouse and the furry little tribbles with teeth. So I hope you're going to come back with me in a retro deep dive into a thoroughly underestimated cult classic at a time when creature comedy horrors were all the rage. This decade spawned Gremlins, Ghoulies, Munchies and Killer Clowns from outer space, to name just a few. So hold on to your hats and ride with me in a DeLorean. And like Billy Zane in his first speaking role, get your best mullet on as we explore how the furry little psychopaths with a sense of humour came to be. This movie was the directorial debut for Stephen Herrick, who is also known for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead and The Mighty Ducks. He's always argued that Critters was not a cash grab after the huge commercial success of Gremlins, but the original idea screenplay was finalised a full 2 years before Gremlins came out. Now, scripts, ideas and stories can be passed around Hollywood for some time before getting made. However, the scriptwriter has also stated that they were given just 6 weeks after Gremlins became a box office smash to finish that script and get it into production. Dominic Muir was the writer who wrote the original screenplay, then titled Beasties. Thank heavens that didn't stick. He's openly stated that his inspiration for the core concept is based on his childhood fears of creatures under the bed. I'm still impacted by Poltergeist and that bloody clown. It was Stephen Herrick, however, that took Muir's script and shaped it into the very specific filmmaking style of Critters. Also important was the producer Rupert Harvey, who championed the project, getting it made under a tight deadline and shaping the B-movie campiness of the original. Meanwhile, we can't underestimate the impact of the Chiodo brothers, who created the physical design of the Krites, an iconic part of Critters. So whilst it was a collaborative effort, I think the physical design of the psychopathic hedgehogs on acid is what made this movie so cult. And the Chiodo brothers are hugely iconic. Stephen, Charles and Edward are legendary in the world of special effects, primarily known for their work with puppets, stop motion and animatronics. They were involved with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, not just the effects, they directed this cult classic, Team America, World Police, where they brought their unique brand of puppetry to the satirical action comedy, and is still a film that I laugh at constantly, although I think you'd have a snowball's chance in hell of getting that made today. Elf 2003 for the charming stop motion sequences. Another notable project was Robocop 1987, where they contributed to the creature design and stop motion work. And believe it or not, the original creature featured Gremlins in 1984. They collaborated with Chris Wallace on some of the Gremlin puppets. So who's in this thing? Well, featuring some real Hollywood royalty such as E.T.'s mom, Dee Wallace, character actor legend M. Emmett Walsh, known for Blade Runner, Blood Simple and The Jerk, Scott Grimes as Brad, a voiceover powerhouse with American Dad and roles in ER and The Orville, and even Neelix from Star Trek turns up, both dead and alive, in the form of Ethan Phillips. Fun nerd fact is that Ethan also played a Ferengi named Ferek in Deep Space Nine. But we're here to talk about those carnivore hedgehogs with anger management issues. Critters is surprisingly well acted, with believable characters based on small-town America during the 80s, and it's been credited with being a satirical look at consumerism. Originally starting as more horror than comedy, but at first test screenings the horror moments got bigger audience reactions when they were punctuated with comedy lines. It also takes a very Jaws approach to character development, with this taking up the first third of the movie, rather than the reveal of the little porcupine-styled dentist nightmare teeth bags. Now Steven Spielberg this isn't, but fun, camp, goofy, and with what I feel is a genuinely unique little critter, defiantly. Whilst Grover's Bend may be a very idealised view of small-town America, personally, growing up in the UK's version of the Deep South, the Isle of Wight, I thought this was what all of America was like outside New York. And boy did I want to live there. But what about the story? Major spoilers from here on out, but this is a comedy horror-style deep dive, so I really shouldn't have to tell you that. And I'm going to give you a whistle-stop comedy tour through the plot before we dive deeper into characters, comedy, horror, and the creation and use of special effects and puppetry of the movie, so buckle up. We start with a jailbreak, and forget hardened convicts, we're talking Krites. Nightmare spiky Furbies with a taste for flesh and a talent for chaos. 2 have already been killed because they were eating everything in sight and were left with our 8 nightmare hedgehogs. They bust out, hijack a spaceship, and the warden needs this intergalactic mess cleaned up immediately. He contacts the best in the business, Ugg and Lee, shape-shifting bounty hunters. Ugg, picture an alien rockstar wannabe. Lee, well, think featureless head, still deciding on a personality and form apparently. This odd couple gets beamed down to Earth, ready to hunt, after studying our blue ball through television, and focusing in on an 80s soft rock music video called Power of the Night. Anyone for power rock moves? Gave me, for some reason, Bon Jovi vibes. Sorry, Bon Jovi. Meanwhile, we actually encompass at Graver's Bend, which coincidentally is also mentioned in Ghoulies as the town that had been taken over by demons. We've got the all-American Brown family. There's April, the teen sighing over boys, Brad dreaming of ditching and farm life, Charlie, the local drunk ranting about alien fillings, along with Mom and Pop just doing trad wife and dad roles. It's so American I expected the dessert at the later dinner to be apple pie. One night, it gets real. Brad spots the killer Krite's fiery crash landing. Him and Dad go to investigate and see the half-eaten cow. They hightail it back to the farm where even Dad starts to believe Charlie's crazy UFO talk. But they haven't come in peace and they want to chew you into pieces. The critters cut the power, gobble up a cop, which makes for a reverse ride for the bounty hunters later, and straight up invade the farm like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Jay, our brave dad, takes one for the team, fighting a Krite, barely surviving an encounter worthy of a horror flick. And if you start to see these guys as cuddly, you have questionable survival instincts. While things go south on the farm, April's having a heyday, literally, with her boyfriend Steve. Too bad their smooching gets interrupted by a hungry Krite who takes dinner time way too seriously. Poor Steve, and with that hair and mini man pony. Thankfully, Brad's homemade fireworks give the critters indigestion, big time. The rest of the Krites ain't too pleased. Car sabotage ensues, farmhouse siege, the works. Cue the bounty hunters. Town folks flip out about a rock star lookalike, arguing all his glam, and a creepy dude with no face, thankfully. A panicked church meeting, there's not a lot left by the time they're done. A bowling alley bust-up with a cute reference to Ghostbusters on the back of those shirts. These intergalactic cops have as much subtlety as a marching band at a ninja convention. Luckily, Brad stumbles across them and fills them in on the critter carnage. Then there's the farmhouse finale. Turns out even spiky space monsters do take out sometimes and wanted their dinner to go. They nab April and hightail it back to their stolen ride. Boom! Bounty hunters and a Farwick-wielding Brad arrive just in time. But Brad drops the Krite cracker in the chaos. Just when the escape looks flawless, Charlie, of all people, swoops in. Whiskey becomes a Molotov cocktail, the critter barbecue of the century happens on board, and goodbye spaceship. Our unlikely heroes win, bounty hunters restore the farmhouse like magic, and Charlie? He joins the alien bounty hunters. But just when you think it's a happy ending, have a look at those Krite eggs in the barn. I can't see a movie like Critters being made today, and we are exposed to so few B-movie titles. Half of the good content I see is South Korean and on Netflix. Hollywood is more concerned with the racial and alphabet dynamics than showing a strong nuclear family with likeable and relatable characters. Is it idealised? Well, of course, but it's also strongly acted and believable, and they do this by ensuring we get to know these characters. You've got the sweet, sensible mom, the slightly frazzled, hard-working dad, the teen with more than college on her mind, the young boy with an 80s bedroom to be proud of. We spend the first third of the movie with these characters and exploring their values. The dad is firm but fair with a no-supper rule for Brad, even though technically it wasn't him but Charlie, his friend, who fired that slingshot. And he obviously still gets supper and a heart-to-heart. I like this family. It feels, if not real, at least relatable on some level. They do a great job of setting up the fathers so that when that first suspenseful scene in the basement, a horror story trope if ever there was, happens, you genuinely want the dad to make it out alive. Even the teenager versus younger sibling dynamic displayed in the opening breakfast scene then gets a nice little payoff with a sense of understanding and familial love between them. After all, Brad goes to rescue April. The rest of the town characters are not quite as well realised, but this is a story about the Brown family and an invasion of the home variety, just with voracious carnivorous space hedgehogs. The bounty hunters play it camp but straight.
It ain't Halloween, is it?
Charlie the drunk, played by OOOpps, apparently ad-libbed most of his ravings about the aliens and was hugely proud of the series, appearing in all four.
Sal, you remember, right? I was a prospect, huh? And I wasn't drinking then, was I?
Sure, Charlie, sure. You were major league material.
Right. I had heat. And then I started getting these messages.
He also used to attend lots of horror conventions, and other notable sci-fi and horror roles were The Evil Dead, 1981, Android, 1982, and Black Moon Rising, 1986, as well as countless roles across TV. Sadly, OOOpps passed away in 2018 and will be sorely missed by cult classic lovers everywhere.
Serious attitude problem.
Keep your shirt on, asshole.
He's remarkably believable as being Lee the Bounty Hunter when he plays that role, and sports that 80s wig. But let's address the alien in the room. As E.T.'s mom Dee Wallace also starred in a screamy, if believable, and sort of sexy trad wife mom role, her pedigree in the horror sci-fi genre is legendary, appearing in Cujo and The Howling. I also always wondered about a very specific scene in this movie. Was this an FU to Steven Spielberg? Who knows? The Krites, Critters' iconic antagonists, were the result of a whirlwind of creativity and classic practical effects wizardry. The Chiodo brothers, Charles, Stephen and Edward, sculpted, built and puppeteered these spiky furballs to life. It was a grueling process. They created over a dozen puppets, each requiring multiple iterations due to the wear and tear in filming of those intense chomping and rolling scenes. Controlling the Krites was a dance of hidden puppeteers and elaborate contraptions. For close-ups, team members knelt below false floors, expertly managing the critters' mouths, eyes and expressions. When needed, intricate rigs and pulley systems sent the Krites rolling or launching towards their hapless victims. But even with that precision, there were mishaps. The critters would often go rogue, adding to the chaotic energy of the attack scenes. The puppets themselves were feats of low-budget ingenuity. Their eyes were cleverly repurposed ping-pong balls, and their menacing teeth? Some were fashioned from everyday toothpicks. The fur, however, was far less prickly than it seemed, made of soft moose hair for comfort during filming breaks. Even with their cosy side getting covered in critters' guts, a mix of KY jelly and various food ingredients wasn't the most glamorous part of the actors' roles. Despite the low-budget constraints, the critters became iconic because of the energy and ingenuity their creators poured into them. Bringing personality to a puppet with only teeth and eyes is no small task, but the Chiodos somehow infuse these aliens with a blend of cartoonish chaos and a real sense of menace that still evokes laughs and chills decades later. Some fun facts? The critter puppets' mechanisms often backfired. One famously shot across the set during a take by accident. To prevent escape, or theft perhaps, the critter hand puppets were always locked in a secure box when not in use. One special effects artist electrocuted himself while experimenting with wires to animate the critter's fur. Despite the special effects overlaid sometimes with the practical, Critters was only in production for about 30 days. Perhaps that's why the escape pod the Krites steal changes suddenly, and also that pesky production budget. Despite its origins as a rushed cash-in on the popularity of Gremlins, even though the original ideas etc. predate this, Critters carved its own unique niche in the world of cult classic cinema. Its success comes from a combination of B-movie charm, outlandish humour, and surprisingly memorable creature design. The Krites, while initially dismissible as furry knockoffs, have a distinctly menacing side, spiky rolling balls of hunger, capable of devouring everything in their path. Or should that be everyone? Unlike more serious sci-fi films, Critters relishes its absurdity. There's a self-aware wink throughout, from the small-town Kansas setting, clashing with the alien invaders, to the outrageous ways characters fight back, or fail to. It balances silliness and moments of legitimate tension, where those seemingly goofy Krites instill genuine fear through sheer relentlessness and numbers. The cast embraces the campy premise fully. You've got seasoned character actors like M. Emmett Walsh and Lynn Shay beside zany performances from Dee Wallace and a young Billy Zane. However, it's Don Opper as Charlie McFadden, the town drunk no one believes, who walks away as the breakout star. His outlandish rambles about alien messages foreshadow the real threat, adding a layer of surreal charm. Additionally, the film's practical effects hold up surprisingly well. Yes, they are crude by today's standards, but those puppet-based hedgehogs from hell and their gooey explosions have a retro appeal that CGI just lacks. There's an earnest attempt to build an alien race with just enough visual quirks to create lasting recognition. Critters won't win any Oscars, but it never aimed to. Instead, it offers the right amount of absurdity, creature feature mayhem and offbeat humour to carve a lasting place in the hearts of genre fans, mine especially, and has led to sequels, fan conventions, and an enduring fascination with those hungry, havoc-wreaking alien furballs. I fell in love with this movie for all of these reasons, and watching it as an, let's say adult, but we all know I don't really mean it, was a genuine thrill. Nostalgia? Perhaps, but the reason people fell in love with Baby Yoda in the first season is because he was a practical effect. If you've never seen this movie, grab some popcorn. Remember it was filmed in the early 80s, and just enjoy the ride. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. That's all this videographer's got time for today. See you in the next one.